On today's edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the UFC London main event going down July 22nd between Tom Aspinall and Marcin Tybura. Let's get right into it. The return of Tom Aspinall. We haven't seen him in a while. Let's do a quick tail of the tape here. Tom Aspinall, you can see 12-3. Marcin Tybura, 24-7. 30 years old for Aspinall, 37 for Tybura. 6'5" to 6'3", 78 apiece. They got the same reach. Aspinall's a little bit taller and a lot younger here. If you've never watched a show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles. Then I'm going to give you my pick at the end. Some of this stuff may have relevance, it may not. I just like to look at every little angle when it comes to previewing fights, and we can talk about this fight after we're done in the comments section, as long as you're not, being a troll. It's as simple as that. Let's start first with Tom Aspinall. The reason this card is being put together, he's at the top of it. Tom Aspinall from London. Let's get into some stuff here. So I mentioned it there. This is the main event. It is 5 rounds. Tom Aspinall, you can see there, is 12-3. He's got 9 knockouts, 3 submissions, and no decisions. He's 30 years old. As you can see there, and he's 6'5" with a 78-inch reach. So you can see there he is 8 years younger and with a 2-inch height advantage. Tybura is going to be 38 in November, so that's why it's 8 years total. He is the number 5th ranked heavyweight in the UFC. He's a BJJ black belt, trains out of Caboon, Liverpool. I always butcher that. Aspinall's got performance of the night 4 times against Jake Collier, Andrei Arlovsky, Sergey Spivak, and Alexander Volkov. He's also had a professional boxing fight in June of 2017, which was a first-round KO finish. In terms of MMA, Aspinall made his amateur debut back in March of 2013. Ended up going 5-0 as an amateur. Made his professional debut in December of 2014. At this point, just to show you the experience gap here, Marcin Tybura had 12 pro fights by the time Aspinall made his debut. So keep that in mind in terms of these two being obviously the discrepancy in age and the experience gap there as well. Aspinall did not make his UFC debut until July of 2020, and at that point, Marcin Tybura had 10 UFC fights. So again, a lot more experience there. Aspinall's gone 5-1 in the UFC. I said 5-0 by accident because he really should be 5-0 at this point. He's got 5 stoppage wins. Some notable wins he's got include Alexander Volkov, Sergey Spivak, and Andrei Arlovsky. His only loss is to Curtis Blades. If you watch the fight, it was an injury. Listen, I'm a big Curtis Blades fan. It was more of an injury than a win for Curtis Blades, in my opinion. I like Curtis a lot, but that's how I feel about the fight. You're not going to change my mind on that. So realistically, I think when injuries like that happen, especially that early in 15 seconds, it should just be a no contest. Tom Aspinall should not have a loss on his resume because of an injury that he suffered. And, whether Blades, it's not like Blades kicked his knee and it was game over. You could see he had a bit of an injury there as well. So again, I don't really consider that like a loss there for Tom Aspinall, but that's just my opinion. You can disagree. That's why we're here. So the only layoff that Aspinall will have in his career is actually the one going into this fight. So it'll be exactly a year. You can see there 364 days. So check this out. He fought on July 23rd against Blades. He's fighting on July 22nd against Tybura. So 364 days is a pretty big layoff going into this one. Of course, he had the knee injury in that fight. That's why we've not seen him in so long. But other than that, he hasn't had any other injuries that have taken him out of any fights. It's actually interesting. Looking back now, he's supposed to fight Sergey Pavlovich back in September of 2021. There was visa issues. Who knows how that fight would have gone with how well Pavlovich has done since then. Because Tom Aspinall has not gone the distance in his UFC career, or his career period, there's been no close fights. So it's all sort of cut and dry here. And before we get off talking about Tom Aspinall, quick look at his stats. So if you look at it here, Tom Aspinall, check this out. This is pretty incredible, actually. And granted, a lot of his fights have ended early. That's why these stats are a little bit inflated. But significant strikes per minute, landed per minute, is 7.41. You just don't see numbers like that. It's pretty crazy. His striking accuracy is also at 65%. His striking defense is at 64%, which is good. And his takedown defense is at 100%, although how many guys have really... how many takedowns have been attempted on Tom Aspinall? Probably not a ton, but he does have good takedown defense anyways. And his average takedowns, as you can see there, average takedowns landed per 15 minutes is 4. That's pretty high too. So again, Tom Aspinall, you guys have heard me on my live streams talk about him, an extremely well-rounded fighter, and dare I say the best prospect in the heavyweight division right now. I know Jailton Almeida is going to make a claim for himself here soon in November when he fights Curtis Blades, but I think Tom Aspinall right now is number 1 in my book. So that's pretty much everything on Tom Aspinall. Again, only 6 fights in the UFC, not a ton of data to sort of dissect there because a lot of his fights, like I said, ended early. Let's go to Marcin Tybura, his opponent. a guy who's really resurrected his career a little bit. That's why he's getting this opportunity. You can see it there. 24-7 for Tybura. He's 24. He's got 9 knockouts, 6 submissions, and 9 decisions. He's 37 years old, but will be 38 in November. He's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. No advantages here at all. He's older, and Aspinall is going to be a little bit bigger in this fight. He's currently ranked number 10 in the heavyweight rankings as a BJJ black belt. He trains out of Ankos MMA. It's Ankos. Not sure how you pronounce that. He's also the former M1 heavyweight champion. That was a great organization for years. I don't know if M1's still doing shows around these days, but that was a pretty prestigious title for him to win. Actually beat Andre DeLita, who's in PFL in M1 as well. Tybura's got performance of the night 3 times against Victor Pesta, Greg Hardy, and Walt Harris. Tybura did not have an amateur debut, went straight to the pros way back in November of 2011, made his UFC debut in April of 2016, which was actually a loss to Tim Johnson. If you look at it there, Tybura hasn't had any major layoffs. To his credit, he's actually fought a lot. I kind of even forgot that he fought 3 times in 2020 during the pandemic, which was great. So this is a guy that, he does have some losses, but he's fighting good opposition and he's keeping very active overall. Some notable wins for Tybura in his career include Andrei Arlovsky, Sergey Spivak, and Alexander Romanov. Some losses, some key losses here. I mentioned Tim Johnson, Fabricio Verdum, Derek Lewis, Shamil, which is a fight he probably would have liked. Augusto Sakai, I was actually at that fight. He got knocked out in the first round in that one. That was the last Vancouver card that came to Canada, that fight night card with Gaethje and Cerrone. And then also lost to Alexander Volkov by decision as well in that fight. So that's the only blemish he's had in the last couple fights. Outside of that, some pretty impressive performances there from Marcin Tybura. Now, Tybura has gone the distance 9 times in his career, and he's had a couple close fights. Let's talk about that Tim Johnson fight. Majority felt that Johnson won the fight. If you look at the media scorecards on MMADecisions.com, that was at UFC Fight Night 86 in April of 2016. 12 media members scored the fight for Johnson, just 4 scoring it for Marcin Tybura. So again, majority felt like that was the right decision. But the Romanov fight, actually went back and looked at that. Most people felt like that should have been a draw. So it was a majority decision for Romanov. But going back and looking at the media scorecards, that was UFC 278 in August of 2022. Only 1 media member scored the fight for Tybura. 16 scored it a draw. So probably should have been a draw there, but either way, wouldn't have been a loss for him either. Still a great performance. A lot of people thought Romanov was going to steamroll Tybura, and that did not end up happening in that fight. And then even his last fight against Blagoy Ivanov, who, by the way, just got released by the UFC. Actually, sorry, he didn't get released. I'm getting him mixed up with Iri Latifi, but I think Ivanov is still in the UFC. But anyways, that was on the Lewis and Spivak card in February. 9 media members scoring the fight for Tybura, 2 scoring it for Imavov. So some people did feel like maybe Tybura didn't do enough to win the fight. Looking at some quick stats here with Tybura, you can see there his significant strikes landed per minute is 3.55. He's got a 48% striking accuracy, which isn't great. And then striking defense is at 55%. His takedown defense is at 79. We'll see if Aspinall will get a takedown in this fight. And his takedown average is 1.39, which is far less than Tom Aspinall. But you got to remember, too, there's way more data here with Tybura than Aspinall. If, Aspinall gets more fights, his data is going to go down a little bit unless he continues to get first-round finishes, but not sure that'll continue to happen here. We do not have odds for this fight at the time of recording this. However, we do have Topology, which is kind of useful and kind of seeing how people are picking. And check this out. I didn't think it would be this much of a discrepancy here. 96% of people picking Tom Aspinall in this fight, 4% picking Tybura. I think that's off a little bit. Tybura is a pretty durable guy for the most part. He had a couple losses here to Shamil and Augusto Sakai and Lewis as well. The Lewis knocks out everyone these days. But outside of that, he's not really getting finished a ton, right? Like, at least not in the UFC. We haven't seen like a ton of stoppage losses, not recently. We haven't seen him like in any sort of like major danger in some of these wins either. So yeah, I would say he's pretty durable. You can argue with me on that if you'd like. As far as my pick for this fight, and again, this is going to be a bit of a shorter breakdown, a little bit less data to work with. I like Tom Aspinall all day in this fight. Here's the other thing you got to consider too, okay? The UFC goes to London very frequently. They have welterweight champion Leon Edwards. Tom Aspinall is another big chip for them. With Darren Till out of the UFC and his career sort of taking a downward spiral, you can definitely tell they are big on Tom Aspinall and they want to continue his progression. Again, he's coming off a major knee injury. They're not going to give Tom Aspinall someone that they feel is going to be able to beat Tom Aspinall, I don't think. Now, let me rephrase that. Tybura has the ability to win this fight, I think. I think there are some ways that he can do it. Again, a lot more experience, very well-rounded in general, and like I mentioned, the durability there as well. But UFC, if they have it their way, they want this young, UK fighter to win this fight as opposed to Tybura, who's 38. Like, what are you getting at this point with Tybura? He's kind of getting towards that contender spot, but I think there was a reason they put this fight together. Long story short, I like Aspinall in this fight. He's just good everywhere. People, throw the word around future champion a lot. They talk about that with Jailton Almeida, and I certainly can understand that. Tom Aspinall to me is that guy. I'm very hesitant to put that label on a lot of people, but I think Aspinall has the skills to do it because he's good everywhere, man. He's got the knockout power. He's got a great jiu-jitsu game as well. We've seen him submit a number of opponents here, and he's young. He's only getting better every fight. The layoff is a bit of a concern here, but that's why I think Aspinall will get the finish, but I don't think he'll get it in the first round. I think he'll get it in the second round. I think that first round is going to be a bit of a feeling out process for Tom Aspinall, but I think overall he's just going to be way too fast for Marcin Tybura. That's one thing you got to consider here. Aspinall moves like a light heavyweight or like a 85er. Like he's just such a fast, exciting prospect in the weight class. And again, you look at it, they're 30 years old. He hasn't even scratched the surface yet as far as heavyweight goes, in my opinion. So I'm going to go Tom Aspinall. Second round knockout. I know I talked about the durability of Tybura, but if there's one guy to do it, I think it's Tom Aspinall for sure. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Is there anyone here picking Tybura? I'm assuming most will be on the Tom Aspinall side, but if you like Tybura, tell me how you think he's going to get it done. Really curious to your opinion on that, and we can absolutely discuss this in the comments. Also, if there's any other fights you want me to preview that are coming up that interest you, let me know in the comments. I can definitely consider it. And I've taken fan requests before as far as fights you want me to break down. I've definitely done that before, so happy to do it for this one. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on another edition of Early Look.